This episode, I was able to chat with my good buddy, Elvie Shane. Got to meet Elvie a little over a year ago. What an amazing guy. What an amazing voice. And what an amazing story. Elvie is one of those guys that his life is reflected in his music. And I got a chance to tap in, understand where all that came from. If you don't like Elvie Shane right now, you're going to love him after this one. Hope you enjoy the episode. Man, you hear that? Look at here. They're coming. They're coming. We're going to have a party. Hey guys, welcome to this edition of the Old Boy Podcast, and I'm excited about this one. Got my buddy Elvie Shane on with us. Elvie and I got to meet each other back at the Trollco event. That was last year?
That was last year at the shoot.
Oh, that's right. We met at the shoot too. Yes, at Tim's shoot.
I think the first time I don't know if I met you. I seen you out just cooking your ass off at a video shoot for one of Tim Montana's music videos here in town somewhere.
Yep.
And I seen you working like a dog. But that was the first time I seen you. And then the first time I think we actually got to hang out was at either the show or the shoot.
Yeah. It was good times, man. And it's one of those that, you know, we first kind of started chatting, introduced ourselves. It was kind of like, man, I can tell I'm gonna get along with this old boy. You know what I mean? Like that same grit, that same determination, you know, just like-minded folks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. There was a lot of good people at that. You know, that's something I'm gonna throw our boy Tim some kudos real quick. He's probably the best I know at just bringing good people together, man. I mean, I think the proof's in the pudding with, you know, the shoot last year and the money that was raised and the shit that he cares about, and I can get down with all that, you know. So I'm glad that we both have a mutual friend in Tim Montana, because here we are now.
Yes, sir, we are. And while we're speaking of Tim Montana, can you confirm or deny the rumor that your father has a Tim Montana-based tattoo?
He does. He's got American thread on the inside of his arm right here.
I love that.
And I think Tim talks to my dad on the phone more than I do. That we FaceTiming each other, and I'll get a screenshot from one or the other of, you know, them having a good old time. And my dad has the uncanny ability of calling you at the absolute worst time to call you. And you know, when you answer the phone when my dad calls it, you're going to be on the phone for 45 minutes to an hour. So last time he was talking to Tim, he said, Tim told me I got the worst timing of anybody out there. I said, yeah, you do, really.
Dad, I'd love to pump you up, but he's right on target with that. Speaking of your pops, you know, as we kind of talk about your music career and how we've gotten to where we are now, you know, born and raised in Kentucky, and a lot of it was watching your pops play, right? Like he was a country music fella.
Yeah, well, he never played. He was just my dad's. He's like one of the last of the good old boy truckers, you know. So I grew up in the '90s and the end of the trucking culture heydays, and riding around with my dad, and most of the time spent in the passenger seat of a Peterbilt was spent listening to Steve Earle or John Fogerty. But Dad loved all kinds of music, from R&B and soul to, you know, heartland rock and country and classic rock. And he always just told me to really pay attention to the words of a song. My mom is a beautiful singer and sang in church. So I got my love for singing from my mama, and I got my appreciation for stories and lyrics through my pops.
Well, and speaking of that, you know, one thing I think you've been really good at and listening to your music is storytelling. And I feel like that's almost become a lost art, especially in like pop country now. Like it's all about beat and this and that and is this a summertime banger? And it's like, man, fucking country music was built around telling stories, man. Whether it be triumph, whether it be heartbreak, you know, whether your dog passed, you know what I mean? Like it's telling stories and it's evoking emotion. You know what I mean? Not just what can we crush the most fucking White Claws to.
Yeah, I feel like we've. I feel like. Oh shit, that's good. I feel like, the stories are still there, but it's a lot of the same story, and it's like we Nashville the fuck out of everything we do anymore. And I just say we because I count myself as part of the group, and so I've got to be guilty myself from time to time. But I feel like it's all about like playing on words and hiding a story that lacks integrity or any kind of depth with a beat, that makes you feel good and want to shake your ass. And, I'm all for that too. I'd love to have people shaking their ass at my show as well. But, I just have I just feel like more burdened. I come from the Baptist religion. I have a strong foundation in Baptist religion. So I feel very burdened to tell the stories I'm not hearing being told, or maybe the stories that I hear being told but not being told right. Forgotten Man, I think, is a perfect example. That song's been written a million times in a million different ways. Mm-hmm. But for the last 20 years, I've listened to it told as like Red, White, and Blue, USA, beer on tailgates. And I love all that shit. Don't get me wrong. That's all good. But it just like, it seems very pandering and like this will get a response. Whereas if you go back and listen to, I know a lot of my folks these days like to be mad at Bruce Springsteen from time to time for his views on things. But if you go back and listen to Born in the USA, I mean, really listen to the words. You hear that Born in the USA and you feel super proud. That feels real proud when you hear it. But if you listen to the words, man, it ain't about like all the great shit.
No.
It's about struggle and perseverance. And that's what inspired Forgotten Man for me more than anything, was that song, and like taking a satirical look at what it's like to be an American and be proud to be an American. Why are we proud? Well, I think it's because we persevere. Mm-hmm. In spite of the government, in spite of the bullshit,
We overcame. By what? By coming together and working hard and being true to ourselves, being true to our beliefs, and just powering through.
Yeah.
I love it.
I would love to see more people come together. I feel like we're starting to see it too, man. Like me and you've been around long enough to remember we didn't all agree, but we didn't talk about it as much. Therefore, we didn't hate each other.
Or if we disagreed, we could talk about what we disagreed on. You know what I mean? And not going to say one's going to change the other's mind, but at least by understanding the lens that they're looking at it through, I can go, hey, I'm still on my side, but I appreciate your viewpoint. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, because we all got different scars, right? Which all changes the lens that we look at this thing through life through. So just understanding where that person's coming from, going, okay, once again, I'm on the other side, but I get why you're there. There's nothing wrong with that.
Tell me why you're there. Don't tell me I'm fucking wrong and you hate me for it.
Right.
Because I tell you right now, my people where I come from, as soon as you start pointing finger and raising your voices, when we're going to fight back even harder, we ain't even going to give you a chance to change our mind, So, so I hate that in one sense, but it's like, we just need to quit yelling at each other. But I feel like we're starting to see it, man, a little bit. People are getting fed up with being mad at each other and arguing over stuff, and there
ain't no sense in it. You know what I mean?
There ain't, man. Whatever happened 4 years ago that just started to completely divide us is wearing on our patience at this point. So I like seeing that we're starting to have conversations again. And
I think people are sick of just being sheep, and following the direction and following the herd. It's like, no, we've been going through this shit enough. All right, I'm going to raise my head up and I'm going to look around and I'm going to formulate some thoughts for myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And instead of just letting my thoughts be populated by whatever's on social, whatever's on the news, you know what I mean? Like actually doing some free thinking and stepping back, doing your own research and going, where are we as a country? Oh shit, fucking prices are through the roof. You know what I mean? And really looking at data to go, man, we're in a lot fucking worse situation than we were. We got to start talking about this and figuring out how do we fix it in the shit that we control, our sphere of influence.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's easy to look at somebody in starch jeans, with cowboy hat standing right beside some girl with green and black hair and piercings all in her face and think those people are very, very different people. But when they close the doors and they go in their house with their loved ones, they probably feel the same kind of emotions about the people they love. They probably have the same, probably have similar struggles in life, whether it be financial or, just emotional, personal. If it's about love, money, God, work, whatever, we have so much in common these days. And we like to, I always tell people before I play my song, What Do I Know? When I wrote the last verse of that song, I seen two people, standing across this great divide from each other with holding up their signs about what they disagree on when there's 5 million other things behind that we probably agree on. And I don't know what the hell just happened when I held my fist up like that. Did you see all the fireworks behind me?
Yep.
Maybe the computer just loved what I had to say there, but I didn't push a button.
No, it's some new emojicon shit where like if you do a thumbs up or something, it like, yeah. You fancy, bro.
I don't know. But anyways, man, the point being is I wanted to work on this project and highlight some universal issues that I was seeing out there, and that was financial, societal, drugs, family, God, and I wanted to highlight those things in an attempt to get people to listen and think, well, hell, maybe we got a lot more in common than we thought we did,
Well, and that gets back to telling that story and helping people see it through another lens. You know what I mean? That's one of the things as a musician that I think brings me back to your music all the time is it's relatable, it's storytelling, it's coming from a place of, sometimes vulnerability, but a lot of the time just coming from the heart, you know what I mean? Coming from the soul and just trying to share that with folks to enrich their life. And I mean, I think that's why we turn to music during our best times and our worst times. So, you know what I mean? And having somebody you can lean on and listen to and go, man, Elvie gets me. He knows it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the thing is that I always tell other artists, I'm like, just resign yourself from the thought that you're special in any way because you get to do this for a living. And when you're writing songs, just write what you know to be true or write your story, because chances are somebody else has went through the shit you're going through in some way, form, or fashion.
Yep.
It might not all look the same. The wallpaper might not be the same, but the walls are built exactly the same, And
absolutely.
So just tell your story, and sometimes all you need in a song is to be like, oh, well, shit, this person's been there too, and they're doing all right,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know. We're just trying to. I stole this saying from Chris Stapleton. I heard him say it in a interview one time. But we're just trying to tell the truth as loud as we can.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot.
And that actually speaks a lot to his style too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, man.
So getting back to the journey. So mom gets you in church. Has you singing in the choir. When do you pick up a guitar? When does that become something that you want to learn and you want to fiddle around with?
I hauled hay one summer. My mama bought me a dobro for Christmas, a Johnson dobro. And I thought I wanted to learn how to play dobro, but I couldn't figure out the slide stuff. And so then I traded that for electric guitar, but you had to have an amp for that all the time and everything. And so I wanted an acoustic guitar. And my aunt had an old Fender flat top that I still got. I call it Suzanne. But she had that Fender flat top for sale. She said she sold it to me for $150. So I went and hauled some hay and did some other just, young, good old boy jobs and saved up $150. Bought the guitar from my aunt after church one night and took it home and started playing. So I think I was about I'd probably been 12 or 13 when I first started playing guitar. And we didn't have YouTube then, so I couldn't really learn how to play that way. So I would get on this website called guitaretab.com, and I would learn tabs to songs and taught myself how to do that. But then my great-grandmother, she taught me E, A, and B, which I didn't even know she knew anything about guitar, but sit over there one day with my guitar, and she showed me E, A, and B, and she gave me a Roger Miller's Greatest Hits CD, and she said, you can pretty much play any of these songs with those 3 chords. And I was like, oh, cool. So from there, I just started learning more chords. And then when I figured out all 7 chords, I was like, well, shit, that's good enough. And then so I never progressed much until, I couldn't even finger pick guitar until probably 5, 6 years ago.
Really?
So yeah, I'm not the greatest player in the world, but I can play enough to,
Get
make a
by.
little noise behind some words and a melody.
When did you start, outside of church, but like when did you start, quote unquote performing?
Well, yeah, church would have been the first place, but I went to a revival one night at a different denomination church, which was really weird for my mom to even let me go to a different denomination. But she went with us because we knew somebody there and they was having a revival, or one of my aunties did or something. And then after church, this boy had heard me singing, and he came up to me and it's like, hey, man, we got a band, and our singer just quit us, and we got a gig at a VFW in Danville, Kentucky next weekend. Would you be interested in coming and learning our songs and doing that gig with us? And I was like, hell yeah. But my mom, man, my mom was tough growing up. So, like, convincing my mom to let me do this, I was dreading that.
How did that conversation go?
I went and told her, and like to my surprise, she was like, it helped that he was the pastor's son,
Had that going for me.
Yeah, and I told her it was like religious rock, which it kind of was. Kind of like, yeah, it's always like looking back now, I just kind of had that realization telling the story is like looking back now, everything I've ever done in music, there's been some kind of religious connotation that makes its way in there, whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
Sure.
But yeah, so I went and learned those songs, practiced with them like 3 days that week, learned all their material, and wrote one with them. And we went and played the VFW, and that was the first time. And from there I played like a little fair with them and some other stuff, a motocross race one time, and then.
How did it feel? Did you like standing up there performing in front of folks?
Yeah, man, that music in particular was pretty angry. Like it was very in the pop punk, emo rock stage of things when that music was really popular. Mm-hmm. So that was what we were doing, and I was a really pissed off teenager. I had been dealt some shit cards along the way, and that gave me. I realized that when I was on stage, it just gave me an outlet to just like spit it all out, and that was early on, and I never felt that way singing hymns,
Yeah,
singing
exactly.
hymns. It was always just like very praise and glorifying God, but quickly fell in love with rock and roll doing that.
And then do you do that up until the time you head to Western Kentucky?
Man, no. So I did that for 2 or 3 years with those guys. I left high school the day after I graduated. I drove down to a town called Lafayette, Tennessee, where the pastor of our church lived. He would drive 2 hours every Sunday and Wednesday night to come and pastor our church in Kentucky. But he had a mobile home warranty business, so he'd travel all over the East and the Midwest doing warranty work on mobile homes for Southern States, Southern Estates, and Giles mobile home companies. So I went down to work for him right out of high school, making decent money, and about a month into it, I kept getting pulled over all the time. I was really involved in the church because I was living with the pastor and stuff, and I felt like I just felt like I needed to preach. So I owned my calling to preach when I was 18 years old, a month into moving down to Tennessee, and then I did that for about 2 years, and I don't know. At some point, I just felt like I was only regurgitating stuff I'd heard my whole life, and I hadn't really lived it all to test whether or not I really believed the things I was saying, and kind of felt like a caged animal. And I left that, and then I'm one extreme or the other, so I left that, and I went to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I went from God to cocaine pretty quickly. So I had spent my whole life fighting the devil and making good friends with God, and then I decided it was time to see if this devil dude was as bad as he sounded like. And He can be. He can be. But I had a good time there, man. Made some, there's plenty of like regrets. I would say my only regrets during that time, I started playing music again. I was going around playing in some bars and stuff with a couple friends of mine. We had a group called 88 because we were all born in 88, and we rehearsed on Highway 88 in this garage at my buddy Patty's house. But I think the only regrets I really have from that time is like introducing people to stuff. I wish there's times where, I'd be like, somebody had never tried cocaine or somebody had never tried this or that. And I'd be like, oh, dude, here you go. Chop, chop, chop,
Welcome in, water's fine.
Yeah, come on in, the water's fine. And for me, it always was, Chad. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal.
Right.
Because I was the kind of guy who was like, oh, that was fun. Got some money one day. Well, maybe we'll do it again. And, I'd have a headache or feel like shit for a day or two afterward. But I'd go for a couple weeks and not do anything again. But I didn't realize, for some people it was playing with fire. Yeah. And unfortunately for a few of those people, they're not here anymore, So, but I was playing music during that whole time and started writing a lot more by myself and with a couple friends of mine, Chad and Seth. And then I met my wife and I hung my guitar up for like 3 years. I didn't play guitar. I didn't sing a note. I just kind of wrote music off because I associated it with that lifestyle, and I was just like, it ain't gonna take me anywhere anyway. I don't give a shit. I'm done. Whatever. Mm-hmm. So
there you meet your wife and you hang it up. You just kind of dedicate to working. And what kind of job are you doing then?
Look, I met my wife, and my wife was stingy. Like, she wouldn't give me no loving for a long time. And we dated for quite a while, and then I pulled out the guitar one night and got a little loving, and then I put her up, and I didn't touch it again. No. But what was your question? I'm sorry.
No, I was saying, what kind of work were you doing during that time where you had met your wife and you weren't playing as much? Like, what kind of work were you doing to make ends meet?
So after I met my wife, I quit playing the bars. I started working at a sports bar that she worked at called Overtime up in Bowling Green. I was a cook there for a little while. Left there, went and worked for a landscaping company that had a contract with the Corvette Museum. So I did all the weed eating on the whole Corvette plant, not museum. Mm-hmm. And I loved that job. It was cool. I just popped my headphones in, weed eat all day. It was all good. But I just took that job to try to save up some money because we were going to move to her hometown of Monticello. Mm-hmm. I got to Monticello. I started working for this guy building pole barns. God bless him. I called him. I said, hey, man, I want to do something with my life. I'm thinking about going to school learn a little bit about carpentry, but I'd like to actually get a real education in it while I'm going to school for it and work for somebody that does it. So he's like, come on. Well, first couple of days, he's just got me cutting and packing parts, and then he decides he's going to throw me up on the roof. Well, I ain't really afraid of heights. I love to get high. But I was like, I got up there on that pole barn for the first time and I had to walk the lad. And so you got these, for people who might not know, the lad is like usually you do like a 1x4 across all the truss that you can screw the metal roofing to. And there'll be a 2 or 3 foot gap between each 1x or 2x, whatever you use. And you walk that wherever you need to work, and you ain't harnessed in or something. So I got up there and I got up to the crest of the roof, and I was like, fuck, I can't do this. And I tried it for a couple of days, and we got to a job site one day, and I was so anxious about having to get back up there. Call me a pansy ass if you will. I don't care. I told boss man, I said, look, dude, if all you got for me to do is walk that lad, you might as well send me back home, brother, because I ain't your guy. I can't focus when I'm up there. I'm afraid I'm going to end up getting hurt. And he's like, oh, man, I kind of felt that way about you. I was like, I said, I can cut straighter than hell, but I ain't walking that lad no more. So he had me cut for a little bit, and then I stayed with him until I was able to find another job and let him know or whatever. But I left there and went to work at a mill shoveling soybeans and corn out of grain bins and loading trucks and selling feed, and did that for a little while. And then Damn, sorry, this is a long story.
No, I love it. I love it.
I love that job too because I got to be around truck drivers again. You know,
Yeah.
I'd worked at that mill. I'd worked at mill work before and farm work. So in my earlier years, so that was easy peasy. And sometimes those drivers would, throw me a little extra money if I get up early and come load them or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I left there and went to work for my father-in-law, cutting trees and spraying power line right-of-ways for Jackson Energy and Southern RECC in Kentucky. And dude, absolutely love climbing and cutting trees. I worked for him for probably a year and a half and maybe 2 years. And I would just get in a groove and go up there and cut and swing around the trees or run a bucket truck. It was just I got to use my head and my hands for that job for like the first time, and so I really enjoyed it. It was the first job I really had to think about what I was doing.
Felt like you were more than a strong back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Before then, it was always grunt work or mechanic work. I did mostly throughout my teenage years and everything. It was always just mechanic work, working on my dad's semi trucks, or I worked at a full service gas station, changing oil, doing tune ups, brakes, tires, all through high school. But then I left there. God dang, this is crazy. So I left there.
Right now, Elvie, I think if we had like an old boy profession punch card, you're like 80% of completion. We got some fucking mill work, some pole barn building, some tree trimming. Like, I mean,
this is all in like 3 years too, man. I never could figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. I left there and I went to work for this company called Cleary. And if a guy named Pig is watching this, kiss my ass, Pig. He was my first foreman. And he's all right. He's a good old boy, but he sure as hell knew how to piss me off. But I went out there, and so I was growing on that job. But I was making, for the first time in my life, I was making $500-$600 a week, man. I'm driving to Alabama every week, working 4 or 5 days. But I got pulled over on the concrete crew. It was we were doing pipeline construction in Coleman, Alabama. Mm-hmm. And so I was just shoveling gravel and pipeline ditch, helping hook up heads for the track hoe, and sometimes operating smaller equipment and stuff, hauling dirt or whatever. But this guy named Steve Rich borrowed me one day for a concrete crew, and they were building foreman walls and stuff, building a foundation for a water pipe bridge to go over a creek. Mm-hmm. And it was like a walkway with a big pipe underneath it where they could just pump the sewer that way or whatever. And so I'll go over and work with him a day, and Steve's like, at the end of the day, Steve came up to me, he's like, "You ain't going nowhere. You're staying on this crew." And I was like, "Well, fuck yeah, I don't want to work with Pig no more anyway."
That old son bitch.
Pig, if you are watching this, like I said, you're all right. But when you're asleep. But so Steve, they ended up getting into it a little bit, but Steve convinced the guys at the office to let me stay on his crew. And I loved working for Steve, man. We worked hard, but we took care of each other. If one guy said, "Hey, let's stay here and get this shit done tonight," we'd work the extra few hours, get it done. They wanted us to work the week before Christmas, and we all sit down with Steve and said, "Hey, I tell you what, if we all decide to stay here this week and finish our part of this job, can we have the week before Christmas off?" So he called the office, and they said, "Yeah, hell yeah, if y'all want to stay there and work, do it." So we did it. We put in hours, man. And we were even cool about it. We didn't even turn in all our time because we knew they were going to get pissed off if we turned in, 80 hours that week. Mm-hmm. So we just worked for each other so we could go home and spend time with our family. We had a good crew. And as we were rolling out, the other crew came rolling in, and they were pissed that we were leaving. I was like, "Hey, y'all had the same option we did. Too bad." And I remember Steve, the other foreman, he came over and told me, he's like, "If you pull off, you're fucking fired." And Steve said, "By God, you can fire me too then." He's going to the house. And I got to keep my job. But
damn,
I left that job. Steve, he always told me I needed to go grab my guitar and do something different anyway. So kudos to Steve. But I left that and I went and worked for a production company. And that was my first time being in the music industry. And then from there, I was done. I wanted to be around music for the rest of my life. So.
Proud sponsor of the show, Old Boy Apparel. When myself and Tim Montana started building this brand several years ago, we just wanted something that brought together all those people with that hard work ethic, that grit, whether you be a musician, whether you're slinging barbecue, or just one of those blue-collar trades folks. We got an opportunity to partner up with Trollco, and we are really, really enjoying it. Go check out the apparel at trollcoclothing.com. Search Old Boy Apparel. And feel free to use my discount code, OldBoyPodcast, for 15% off. When it comes to music, I mean, you actually started at the bottom there, too. They're working with a production company, and then, obviously, with your background, that passion kicked back up, and it's like, well, shit, I punched all this old boy profession card just to find out I liked what I was doing, you know?
Yeah.
But that's part of the process. That's part of the evolution, you know what I mean? And that's how, and then think about it. Because of doing all that, you're a much better songwriter and artist than if you would have just started bellowing out fucking music at 19 years old.
Well, I feel like that's what we see a lot of these days is there's people that are having success so much younger and, you know, can't be mad at them for not having the life experience that somebody that starts it at 27 had, you know. They're just writing about what they know. And unfortunately, you know, these days when you're 18 to 23 years old, it's just a big hookup scene and a bar scene. And, you know, in that point in your life, too, you're just kind of lost and trying to have fun, figure out what you want. You don't need to figure out what the hell you're doing with your life till you're 25 to 28 years old anyway, I don't feel like, you know.
Get some experience. Try some things
Get some experience. You know, first and foremost, you need experience with the matters of the heart. And the best way to do that is fall in and out of love and have a good time and, you know, do all that stuff during your early 20s. And, you know, there's some younger people that are super blessed with a good head on their shoulders that get out of school and go right to work and start building something for themselves. But you don't have to feel like a piece of shit if you're not that person. Just know that at some point in time you need to figure out what in the hell you're going to do, you know?
But, absolutely.
Dude, I think people don't understand how much, you know, blue-collar work goes into music industry. And I won't say as much like what I'm doing right now, but the production guys, like, that's work, man. You're loading semis by hand. You're stacking stuff by hand. You're building stages. You're turning wrenches. You know, there's times where you're putting your life on the line. I was 30 feet off the ground inside of a motorized roof for a Tomcat truss system. And we had a big gust of wind come through. A storm was rolling in. And I remember that whole roof moving, you know, big time while I was up in it. And I remember yelling at God, "Stop it! Stop it!" it calmed down. I was like, God dang. But man, those guys, I always try to make sure during my show and thank those guys or have the crowd give those guys a big thank you and try to at least say hello. Honestly, dude, don't tell anybody I said this, but sometimes artists can be weird. So
yeah,
I tend to hang out with
our people,
production crew more than I do, you know, other artists and stuff sometimes. So it just depends on, you know, obviously it depends on who they are and where they come from and if they forgot it or not. But I love those guys, you know. They're hardworking dudes.
And man, and the shows are just getting bigger. I was at Jelly Roll's last show last year in Tampa. Get backstage and I'm like, Jesus Christ, Ronnie, how many fucking trucks do y'all have? And he's like, dude, there's 9 trucks. We got 9 tractor trailers to support production.
Yeah, it's wild.
And to watch them go in the morning, blank slate, get all that shit up, throw an amazing show, and as soon as that curtain goes down, it's back to busting ass. And by 1, 2 in the morning, be just like it looked when you showed up at 5 or 6 the morning before.
Yeah. And then the next morning at 8 or 9 o'clock, they got to start doing it all again.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's real hard work, man. And you got to have a good crew. You know, there's a crew most time at Pro Video Audio Productions where I worked. I think we usually had a crew of like 6 to 12 people, depending on, you know, how big the show was. But everybody's pitching in and making sure things get done. And two, at the end of the night, buddy, it might take 8 hours to build that shit up, but you'd be amazed how fast some bitch can tear it down at the end of the night when they want to get home.
Exactly.
3 hours. You turn an 8-hour job into a 3-hour job real fast.
Absolutely. After that long ass day.
Yeah, man. But kudos to those guys. I mean, they put in a lot of work just so we can have a little fun. And so I'm hoping to get to a level where we've got 9 trucks out there one of these days. And I feel like that's the best way at this point, besides my stories, that I can support blue collar, is just giving people good opportunities in that industry and give them good jobs and hopefully be able to pay them well and all that. So
absolutely. I love it. What would you say was the front? And I know you went on American Idol. Would you say that was your first break in this second shot of doing music, or what was the shot?
That definitely wasn't my first break. When I started going around looking for a record deal, most of those guys didn't even know that I had been on the show, if any of them. And when I told them I had been on the show, they were like, well, let's kind of keep that down, you know? What happened was that show, it became very entitled after there was a couple people that made it through it. So you'd get on that show and then they would push you like hell to these record labels. So these record labels were inundated with people that had been on The Voice, American Idol, America's Got Talent, and all this shit. Yep. They were just wore out by it. But I think what I gained from that the most was just, I sure as hell, after I sang Long as I Can See the Light in Dolby Theater, I didn't want to go back to shoveling soybeans again, And kudos to anybody out there shoveling soybeans right now. God dang, it's just not enjoyable. That shit's hard work. And it's always hot when you got to do it.
Yep.
And, but I was like, yeah, I believe I'm just going to do this, So I had to figure out a way. I remember I sang one day and Keith Urban basically looked at me and was like, okay, cool, you can sing. I've heard Chris Stapleton sing, from 10 feet away. That I'm not impressed by that. He was like, basically, can you go 50 hours without sleep because you've had to fly all over the country and play this show and that show and do promo and press and then show up and entertain, 30,000 people with 3 hours sleep? Can you do that? Can you? And it was the first time, because where I come from, I was one of the only boys that grabbed a guitar and sang. There was just a few of us. And so anytime I'd grab a guitar and sing, it was always like pretty positive reinforcement from people around me. So it was the first time I'd ever sang in front of somebody, and they just kind of looked at me like, okay, well, is that what you think it's going to take? Is that all you got? Because there's 10,000 other motherfuckers that showed up and can do that, And it really made me think about things differently. So I think the most I gained out of that show was that interaction with him and just experiencing singing in a beautiful place like Dolby Theater for the first time and wanting more of that in my life.
Well, but that's good. I mean, if that's the one thing you take out of it is that aspiration and that drive to keep that going. I mean, that's a win. Plus your country ass got to go to LA.
Yeah, and two, yeah, right. And I found out LA ain't the place for me. No, Hollywood ain't. Hollywood ain't. I'll say Hollywood's just a real weird place. I mean, some dude will walk by you that ain't had a shower in 2 months, followed by some girl in a $2,000 outfit. And it's like such a weird place. I honestly, I ain't gonna sit here and say I hate California or hate LA. I was just in LA not too long ago. Me and my buddy Dave, my drummer, we just walked 8 miles around the city, and we didn't try to worry about where we was going, if we was going to a bad area or anything. We just wanted to see it, and so I got to see a lot of the grit of the city, and I got to see a lot of people that I could probably relate to, and their living situations and stuff, and because it's not all Hollywood and, diamonds over there. There's a lot of struggle over there. Yeah, there's a lot of struggle over there. And I tend to be attracted to that and to the people that are in the middle of it. But
sure. Do you think, while you mention that, Elvie, do you think a lot of that's your just kind of your Kentucky upbringing and being around some of that struggle and seeing, some of that struggle, because we're going to talk about a couple of your songs here in a bit, but like, I think about like Pill and a couple of them that are like, you can tell it comes from just seeing people go through some tough times. Do you think you've always been able to empathize with that because of where you come from and staying grounded?
Yeah, man, I think I love a good redemption story.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to fix everything. I see a guy sitting on a sidewalk that is obviously had a rough way to go, and I want to see a smile on his face for a second. Yep. I want to see kids that are coming into the world, start to feel like they got a fighting chance of hell of making something out of their lives, even though, their life might be shit at home. Maybe the parents are on drugs or, riding the welfare horse or whatever it may be. But I ain't mad at those people either. I feel like it's just generational, man. And sometimes it takes a few cycles. I mean, I didn't have a terrible childhood. We definitely weren't dealt the worst card or the best cards, but we struggled financially, and my brother and sister were in a real bad wreck when I was a kid, and, messed my brother up pretty bad, and that kind of hurt the family pretty rough. But
sure,
I don't know. I guess maybe because that was early in my life, that struggle came with my brother, and so I immediately, once that happened, I became very defensive of people who are in hardship, like mentally handicapped, physically handicapped people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I'm so intrigued by struggle or whatever it is. At the end of the day, man, I just love people, and I want people to...
Want everybody to live their best life. Have opportunity. Yeah. And when you think about somebody being able to break out and break that generational cycle of whether it be drug abuse, alcohol abuse, any of those things, physical abuse, emotional abuse, when you find somebody that can come out of that and break out and then set the tone of what their kids, what that next generation is going to do under that family name, that's fucking powerful, man. Like that's something where you see that once or twice and you're like, man, I want to invest in seeing this more.
Yeah. What's the cycle? It's like hard times create strong men create easy times create weak men create hard times, Yeah. And so that's the revolving door, I don't know. I'm tired of seeing it. I was sitting there yesterday at the house, and I had a pretty good day yesterday, but there was just this one little point in my day where I started feeling a little woe is me about a couple of things. And I came across this post, and completely unrelated to our country or anything, but it was about the UK, and it said 84. It was about an artist who had made these basically mannequins out of tape, and he puts clothes on them, and he puts them up all over town. And he had done this one on this real tall building in London with a bunch of people standing on the edge of this real tall building, and it was 84 people that he created for this, made them look like they were about to jump, and it was to raise awareness that there's an average of 84 people in the UK, 84 men in the UK that kill themselves every week.
Damn.
So I'm sitting there, starting to, I can't even remember what I was getting upset about right now, but I was like, damn, right now, possibly right now, there's a guy in London or Manchester or Glasgow or Dublin or something. There's a guy over there right now that might have a rope around his neck.
Yeah.
That might be about to swallow a handful of pills and never wake up. And I was like, I've been trying to pay a lot more attention to perspective. This young tattoo artist, I just got me a new...
what you got there, old boy?
Yeah, a little 65 road sign. It's covered up with Sandoderm right now, but he's 26 years old, and he's sitting there giving me a tattoo, and I was just kind of joking around, but I was complaining about my birthday coming up. I said I don't get excited about them anymore, and I'm about to turn 36, and it's just closer to 40. And he said, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but he said, growing old is a privilege, my friend. And I was like, God dang, put old man in his place, dog, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like,
Great point, though.
yeah, man, I thought that was really cool. And so I don't know. I'm just trying to, I, of course, have my knee jerk reactions to things, but I'm trying to put things in perspective a little more these days.
I love it. And your thoughtfulness like that, you know, I've said this a couple times, is so reflective in your music. And I think that's where one, you know, the song that anybody listening to this has had to have heard at least once is your song, My Boy.
Yeah.
Just a friggin' tearjerker, man. I mean, but just because of the emotion, you know what I mean? Where did that song come from?
Oh, man. I met my wife. She had a 5-year-old little boy. And so when we got married, naturally, I became a stepdad, and was just sitting on a porch with a few friends one night up in Hendersonville, Kentucky, Hendersonville, Tennessee, after I first started coming down here. And we wasn't even, I don't think we were supposed to write that night, but we got to talking about this Facebook post that a friend of mine's mom had shared with me. And it was a picture of a little boy, and it said, I don't have a stepson. I have a son that was born before I met him. And I was like, man, there's something cool there, you know?
Yeah.
And we got to talking about it, and like 3 out of the 4 of us had been in some kind of situation where we kind of understood the step relationship. And at the time, I was still pretty young in stepfatherhood and doing a pretty shitty job and trying to figure it out. Still am. But, you know, I came into that song. We just started writing it. Somebody said the first couple lines. I was like, damn, well, we're on to something. Might as well write a song tonight. My whole approach was I wanted to write something for my boy that when he got, you know, the age he is now, he's 17, he could listen to it and be like, oh, this is why this guy came into my life. You know, this is, you know, and like I said, I've done a piss poor job, but I just tried. It wasn't until maybe a year or so ago I had to just figure out that it's not about like, because I tried to like make him my son, you know,
Yeah.
like I would like almost force myself on him, you know, to let him know I care, I want to be there, I want to do these things. I'm dad, I'm dad. And, you know, it felt right doing it that way for whatever reason, but looking back, it's a pretty selfish way of doing it. And what I had to realize is like, just be there, you know, answer the phone, you know, answer the phone, show up when you can, be there, you know, and one day he'll understand. And that's what I started trying to get into the song. Is just like, I want you to know the intentions of me coming into your life. And I probably fail miserably at this job quite often, but I do give a shit.
Yeah, here's where my heart's at.
Yeah. Here's where my heart's at. That's good. I like that.
But because I'll tell you, man, it's as I said earlier when I started asking you about it, like it's a very powerful song. I mean, you think about that show that you and Tim performed at for Troll, that I was there, you know, that young lady that won the sweepstakes to come to it. I mean, you started playing that song, bro, and you weren't 15 seconds in. She was standing right in front of you. I'm sure you remember it, and she was just bawling in tears. You know what I mean? Just because it evoked so much emotion. And I'm sure that song, you know, along with many years, people have reached out and appreciated. But what was it like when that thing just takes off?
Well, man, honestly, it was kind of scary, right? Because you've heard the other music at this point. And so My Boy never really captured the essence of what I'm about or what I'm trying to create sonically or lyrically. It did capture like just the honesty that I try to insert in the music, but it was a very soft, you know, lovey-dovey song. So I was always excited as it was going, and obviously like the money got a little better as things got better, and it made things a little easier, and I was blessed with a lot of great opportunities, but there was always this like lurking fear of like being pigeonholed into this sound.
This is who they think I am.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, so I always struggle with that because I'm like, well, this is who I am, but this is only one part, right? And one thing that really helped me, I seen a video on TikTok a guy made, and it was like this old, I like, I don't know if this is PC or not, but like, this is the way I see it. It was just like a Chicano kind of gangster dude, right? And he had face tattoos all over him and everything, and like visible gang tattoos, you know. And it's a video of him, you know, just holding this little girl in his arms right here. She's standing in front of him looking at the phone, and he's looking at it, and he is just bawling, listening to the girl version. And I was like, well, I reckon it's for anybody and everybody.
Yep.
You know?
That's pretty awesome.
That helped me out a lot with like being able to open up on this next record and tell, you know, other parts of my story, like Pill.
Yes, yeah. I want to hear a little bit about the creative and your thought process on that one, because that one's one to me that's also just very, very powerful.
Well, the first verse of that song is my story, and it's like when I was 22 years old, 23, probably at my worst. And I got to thinking one day, if my little brother could have wrote me a letter back then, what would it have said? And so I wrote that first verse, you know, pretending to be my little brother writing me a letter when he was 14 years old. And, I mean, that was the life, man. It was like, I didn't have most of the time I didn't have my own apartment. I was sleeping on one of my buddy's couches, or I'd sleep in my Mitsubishi Diamante behind Moe's Southwest Grill, where I was working there for a little while. Shout out to Moe's. Welcome to Moe's. But, you know, I had an apartment here and there. I got evicted, but I was, you know, rolling up dollars, living on dimes, bouncing from couch to couch. And then the second verse of that, there was a girl that I dated that kind of pulled into that life with me, and I wanted to highlight that part of the story because it was one of my regrets from that age. I hate when people say no regrets too, because it's the biggest bunch of bullshit I ever heard in my life. But that was one of the regrets, and so I wanted to highlight her in that song as well. Just, you know, in case she heard it, she would understand that I give a shit about my part in that. But no, I went to two of the guys that I wrote My Boy with, Nick Columbia and Lee Starr, and sit down and brought them that idea. And we kind of glazed over some of the, it wasn't as direct in language at first. We were kind of beating around the bush, hiding what it was actually about. Yep. And then I was like, at the end of the chorus, guys, we say, don't leave us all here with that pill to swallow. So it's pretty obvious. So I don't see any trouble in saying 45-minute high or whatever. And they were like, you know, same. So we just said it like it was. And I was really happy with the response in that song. I think that song really started to garner a little more attention for us. And that one's kind of in what I love too. And the reason I find myself like, especially, you know, the new album Damascus, like I find myself always going back to, because it's not like one sound. You know what I mean? Like you do a very good job of having your sound, but it's not all compartmentalized into lovey-dovey or super punk. Like it's just you in your collection of the music that's made you the musician you are. Yeah, dude, there's no way that anybody's ever going to tell me that you can only play these chords or these style of riffs or this. I'm just like, whatever. It doesn't, I don't know. Okay, I'm signed to a country label. Anything I say is going to sound country. Yep. You can hear me talking. But I give a shit less about if I put a synthesizer or a steel guitar or whatever. To me, it's like whatever the song needs, the song should get. And I feel like because of where I was at during that time and where my producer was at and the things we were talking about, there was some kind of like overlying sonic theme that tied everything together somehow. And, you know, I give credit to Oscar Charles for that. I think he's just a mad scientist and great writer, producer, player, everything. But the whole point of this record was to make a multi-genre inspired record. You always got the guy on Facebook. It's like, that ain't country. Well, I never fucking said it was. I don't care. If you want to hear country, go listen to Fan on High. Yeah. Or, you know, if you want to hear gospel, go listen to Does Heaven Have a Creek? If you want to hear rock, go listen to Jones or Forgotten Man. You know, it's the topics, I think, that also keep it in whatever world country is. But Damascus, as you know, I'm sure, is a type of steel that we used to make knives out of. And I just made one with a guy named Kim Breed Knives. He's a retired Special Forces guy. And
cool ass process, isn't it?
Oh, dude, it's so cool. So I went to this place called I can't remember what they call the place, but it's over here in Clarksville, and they'll bring vets in and teach them how to forge for free, and it's all like donation based, right?
Yeah.
So I went up there with a couple of vets one day, and Kim brought a piece of Damascus, build it out, and he let me hammer it out and shape it, and then went back and he let me grind on it and all this stuff. So I got to see part of the process. But you know how you do that is you take this steel with this carbon level, this steel with this nickel level, and it's all different. You throw it in the forge together and you beat the shit out of it until it's all one thing. And you see all those lines in it from the different layers of different types of steel that you use. And at the end, you get this real strong, beautiful looking metal that can make a great knife. And I was like, well, we're writing all these songs, and the first two songs we wrote for the project were Baptized and Forgotten Man. So already I'm just like, how the hell do I put these on the same record? So I'm like, well, Damascus had come up over a conversation about the Apostle Paul and me feeling like I was on my road to Damascus trying to figure out where the hell I was going to go after the first record. So that idea had been born before I ever had this realization. I started thinking about the steel, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just treat these different artists I've been listening to, Johnny Cash, Mac Miller, Foo Fighters, Nipsey Hussle, and they're all my different types of steel. And it's a cool thing about Nipsey. I'll tell you a little bit more of that here in a minute, but I'll treat these guys as different types of steel. I'll throw them in the forge together and beat the hell out of it, and hopefully we'll come out with a Damascus knife. And so that gave me a narrative at that point to do whatever hell I wanted to. Talk about what I want to, make it sound how I want to, and there's a reason behind it, I wanted there to be a reason because that would give me something to follow and, keep my head on straight. But I want to highlight Nipsey for 1 minute because I'm sure some people will be like, this hip-hop bullshit in country music, blah, blah, blah. Well, the thing that I pulled from Nipsey, you look like me, or you could probably guess we grew up very, very different from Nipsey.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Grew up in L.A., in the hood, rough-ass place to live and grow up.
Mm-hmm.
But you listen to the songs, listen to the stories about growing up there, you'll notice a lot of similar things. Finances, drugs, prison, God,
Yep.
So I'm like, well, damn, okay. I recognize those things. There's obviously like a racial layer that I'll never understand. Okay,
fair enough. Same here.
I've never faced any kind of racism in my life, so I don't understand that struggle. But I can get down with the rest of it. But what I loved about that and made me start listening to more like real hip hop artists. I say real hip hop artists, like the guys that grew up in the shit.
Mm-hmm.
The way they tell the story is like, they don't sugarcoat nothing. They just say it. They tell it how it is. And I was like, well, one thing I feel like's lacking a lot in country music these days is just like saying the words. So if you listen to Appalachian Alchemy, there's devil in these hollers. My papa told me so. He's hiding out somewhere down off Barton Ferry Road. Got that high-speed chicken feed, crystal methamphetamines, And it's like, at first when I wrote that, I was like, got that high-speed chicken feed, that's something down and out home recipe. And I was like, well, that's a pansy-ass way of saying it.
Yeah. Let's just call it what it is.
It is what it is. High-speed chicken feed is crystal methamphetamines, and that's the problem. That's what this song is about. Appalachian Alchemy is about methamphetamines making its way into rural America, and I was there to witness that in the 90s. And so I was just really inspired by those guys just telling it how it is and saying the actual words and like highlighting the issues for what they are. And I wanted to implement that into the music, so I wasn't trying to steal from hip hop, melodically or flow wise or anything like that. I just wanted to be able to
you love how directly they told a story.
Yeah.
No, that's actually a great point. And what is the feedback of the new album been? And I'm sure you've gotten a ton of it.
Well, what I love so far, when we put Backslider out, there was like a very short window where people seemed to be super excited about it, but then it just fell off. Now with Damascus, I feel like I'm starting to hear more and more people, like people are spreading the word about it. I feel like Damascus is my first record, man. You know, I'm proud of Backslider.
Sure.
But Backslider was a collection of my best songs.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, and I was honest in parts of Backslider, but I wanted to just like, that whole record was about being nostalgic and highlighting like growing up in Grayson County for the good parts of it, you know, and like just being young, falling in love, in and out of love, and learning how to work and all that shit. And I think that the record really did that, but compared to Damascus, I feel like it's weak and lacking in, you know, just punching you in the gut.
Well, I mean, Damascus is one of those that, like, it shows your scars. It shows the struggle. It talks through, like, it's almost like a full life of you, right? Whereas I can see why you feel like that's such a strong record compared to the first one. All right, proud sponsor of the show, better damn well be Whiskey Bent BBQ. So this is a brand that Nicole and I started a little over a decade ago. You can find our rubs and seasonings in about 500 different retail locations throughout the U.S., Academy Sports, Select, Ace Hardwares, then obviously here at our store in Lakeland, Florida. If you want to go check it out, please feel free to. WhiskeyBentBBQ.com, and you can use my discount code OldBoyPodcast for 15% off.
I'm proud of the record just because I want to listen to it.
Absolutely.
You know, like I don't think nothing too special of myself. You know, I just, if anything, I'm super thankful that the guys, you'll see a fairly short amount of names as co-writers on this project. And that's not because I don't want to write with other people. It's just I was going through some shit at that time. I kind of got strung out again a little bit. And those guys were with me. They were on the bus with me. They were out playing instruments on the road with me. Mm-hmm. And they were just there for me. And they knew what I was going through. And they never gave me shit over it. They just would sit in the room when I needed them to, and they'd work on it. Yep. And so I'm especially proud of Damascus because I know not only did I put my heart and soul into it, but, you know, they did all the other guys that you'll see on that really put their heart and soul into it, and they gave a shit about what we were trying to talk about and wanted to highlight these issues. When Luke Preston wrote the bridge for Forgotten Man, you know, Luke wrote that whole section, and we were just jamming, and all of a sudden he stands up with his, you know, composition notebook, and he's like, "Here's to the backs giving out and callous cracked hands, a bank pissed away your retirement plans, but I'm still holding that flame because I still give a damn about that beaten down forgotten man." And when he said it, dude, you could see it all over his face, his body language, like he meant that shit.
Yep, that emotion.
And I was like, hell yeah. So like, you know,
and when you're in a songwriting session and you see that kind of emotion get evoked and this and that, like, I've always been mesmerized by the process. I haven't set in on one yet, but like the songwriting sessions seem like just like they can probably be the most rewarding and the most frustrating place in the world within an hour of each other. But it seems like such a crazy process.
They can be within 5 seconds of each other, dude. You can stand up and say a line that you were just like, this is it. And you look at somebody and they're just like, and you're like, motherfucker, did you not hear what I just said?
Am I on mute?
You need to borrow my ears for a second? What the hell? You know?
Yeah.
But, I mean, it is a pretty amazing thing when it all comes together.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Sacrifices have to be made. You know, I push my guys pretty hard, I would imagine. Like, because I got to, my thing is all about the language, you know? It's like, everything's been told at this point.
Sure.
You know, at some point in time, somebody's told it. So how can we tell it differently? How can we tell it that looks more like I seen it, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the biggest thing that separates us from anybody else who might be telling the story is just like my perspective or the perspective of the guys that are in the room with me. And I know there's like artists out there. I write songs by myself too. And there's, for whatever reason, there's this weird like class of artists right now that's so against people who write with other writers.
All right, seriously?
And I'm just like, yeah, I mean,
Fuck
it's
that.
like, I don't want to say no names, but it's like, there's just this whole like pretentious side of country Americana world that's like, oh, you wrote this with
like, dude,
this
go
guy
back
or
to
these other guys.
yeah, go back to Willie, Waylon, Merle.
Yeah.
Like those guys didn't write all that shit by themselves. Like they were all getting fucked up, running shit back and forth. You know, deciding whose voice would go better with the song. You know what I mean? Like that's fucking songwriting.
It's part of country music heritage,
Damn
and also
straight.
it's like I'm like, okay, know it all. Like fuck, I don't know what to tell you. I love hanging out with my friends for 3 to 6 hours at a time and hashing it out and having conversations and stuff. So it was Damascus was an awesome journey. It was really frustrating at times, really disheartening at times. You know, there was a lot of, there's quite a bit of times where there were meetings where Damascus wasn't even going to be a thing. Like it wasn't going to exist, and I got a great team. I love my team, but we butted heads over whether or not we were going to do this music a few times. And then this guy named Robert Deaton had me do a Rolling Stones project, and I sang Sympathy for the Devil on that. And they did a documentary around it. Mm-hmm. Well, they took that documentary. I had a conversation with somebody at the label, and love and respect her. She's awesome, but we just wasn't getting anywhere. And I told her, I was like, look, I really appreciate the opportunities that I've been given, but if I can't do exactly what I believe in doing right now, then I'm just going to go back to cutting trees for my father-in-law, or I'm going to go drive a truck with my brother and my dad or something. And we get off the phone, and then that week, Robert brought that documentary into the label and played it, and they got to see me in my element. They got to see me creating and working with these guys in the studio. And I got a phone call back and was like, we absolutely do not want you to do that. Let's do this. So they gave me the rope, and that's all I was asking for.
I was about to say they gave you the latitude that you had been wanting. You know what I mean? And that's and sometimes people have to see that passion, that process, because really all they're evaluating it on is 3 fucking minutes per song. You know what I mean? They're not seeing what goes into it, the emotion, the back and forth. Like, man,
it's not their job to, man. You got those people have to worry about. They got to worry about bottom line. They got to worry about. They got to perform on their end and be contributing money to the company, or they lose their job. And it's hard when you're not the artist to understand what the artist is going through to get this out there. And some artists, they sometimes I wish I could be more like some of them. They're just like, cool, I'll do that, whatever, But I'm like, I just can't do that.
Yeah.
And so, I appreciate being able to be part of that. And also I appreciate, I ain't never going to be mad at anybody for, standing up for what they believed in. And there was a time where they didn't believe in this music, but now they hear it. And that story's different, and they're seeing how it's touching people. So our numbers aren't anything crazy right now. I'm still trying to build this thing.
Sure.
I would still consider myself very much in the infancy stage of, building a successful career as a singer-songwriter.
Well, but you're doing it. That's the thing, and you're making progress, and each step's a little further. You know what I mean? So as you're evolving, as you're building, and then plus you got to remember too. I mean, as far as, musicians these days, you were a bit of a late bloomer as far as, jumping into it. You know what I mean? But like I said, I mean, thank God this isn't like some of the guys I interview on here, like rodeo or UFC, where you have this super short shelf life as far as the ability to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I think you keep plugging away, man, because anybody I ever introduced to your music is like, damn, Chad, thank you. I'm glad you sent that my way. You know what I mean? Like, and they could be going through something in life or not going through something in life. Just like, hey, man, I'm looking for something different to listen to. I'm like, dude, I really enjoy this. I think you will too. And I think that's and here's the thing, when you're that kind of artist, and you're not that, poppy fucking top 40 country guy, it's going to take a little longer to get there. But you know what, man? It's your fucking journey and you're doing it.
Yeah, man, I'm fine with that, to a certain extent.
Yep.
I've got to take care of my wife,
Sure.
my kids, my kid. One of them's pretty self-sufficient at this point in his life, but I got a wife and a 3-year-old I got to think about the next, 15, 18 years about with the kid, and, the rest of my life with my wife.
Sure.
So, I got to see some growth. I believe it's coming.
Yeah.
My focus right now is just more asses in seats, man.
Absolutely.
And show up to the shows.
And I will tell you, Elvie, I've lived this same journey with Tim. You know what I mean? Because me and him have been friends for 10 years. So I've seen, his whole journey and the ups and downs and all the shit you guys go through. The one thing that both you and him have, though, is that perseverance. You know what I mean? And you're going to keep working. You're not going to get outworked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're going to take every opportunity you get, and you just like the Rolling Stone one. Great opportunity, only if it's just so the record can see, here's how I operate. But then also other people just look at it and go, fuck, I feel like I know this guy now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm connecting. Like, that's another reason I love the podcast is, once again, here's an hour where people have just gotten to hear, here's the guy behind the music and what brought that music to you. Because you do just have such a passion and are such a unique individual and talented that when people hear that, like, they become Elvie fans. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh man, I could give or take that. Like, you listen to you for an hour and where all this came from and your background and the music that is driven. Fuck, dude, who does not want to be an Elvie Shane fan?
Well, hopefully there's at least a couple that listen to me talk and be like, I'm this chode. I'm turning this shit off. We need haters in life, don't we? We need haters.
If you ain't got haters, you ain't trying hard enough.
That's right. No, man, I really appreciate all that. I still feel like word of mouth is king.
Yes.
And social media is just a great way to be able to spread word of mouth a little bit faster. So we're just trying to get things growing. I'm a little bit of an old soul when it comes to this new modern social media driven world. So trying to find our niche and all that to come across authentically and get people interested in following us on all that. So if you are watching this and you liked 20% of what I had to say today, that'd be real cool if you go follow and check us out on all socials if we're playing a show anywhere near you.
And you got the tour schedule on the website or social or both?
Yeah. Just about everything is up on elvieshane.com where people can go check it out. And then we've been selling vinyls and CDs, and we, like, me, my wife, and my roommate / tour manager are the ones packing them and shipping them out, in-home operations. So if you want any of that stuff, grab it. I'll sign a copy for it.
Vinyl, that's fucking cool. I'm glad you did some vinyl. That's rad.
Man, what's crazy is the vinyls are selling like hotcakes. It's crazy. Like, I never thought. Well, I know that this many people don't have record players, but it's just something cool to have to hang up on the wall, I guess, or whatever. But I've already had to put in two other orders.
That's awesome.
Vinyls. So that's been our best selling thing so far with this new project. So
I love it.
And I'm signing everything.
Yeah.
And everything that goes out the door, I have my hands on it and sign it, and I don't know if that makes it worth 25 cents more or what, but
at least 50.
You like it better because
at least 50 fucking cents. I'm not more than a quarter, you son of a gun.
But no, man, we're just trying to have fun and keep the boat going down the river,
I love it. And then before I let you go, I got one more question for you. Is now that we obviously know each other, but now that you've been on the podcast, is there anybody in your circle, one or two people that you think would be great for us to grab up and have join us?
Yeah, man. Ben Chapman.
Okay.
Stephen Wilson Jr., if you could get him on here, he's got such a cool story. And the dude's been grinding it out, writing songs for a long time. His dad was by all accounts, I've heard, a great man, a boxer, and really interesting individual. Ben Chapman, the one I told you about first, dude, he's just got whatever soul was floating around in the 70s.
Yeah.
And he's just somehow he's got it. He's reincarnated of some badass hippie Southern rocker from the 70s. I just not sure which one it is, but Red Clay Stray Boys, Chase Rice.
Yeah.
Chase kind of I kind of slept on Chase. I'll be honest. The first stuff that he was putting out, you know, he had some success with it. It wasn't really my thing.
Mm-hmm.
My producer told me he was going to start working with Chase, and I thought that was an odd pairing. But he's like, hey, why don't you just come out to Chase's house? We got his house turned into a studio. Come check out what we're doing. And I was like, cool, man. I don't know Chase enough to not like him or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
so I just know the music. But I show up, and I thought my producer was there. Well, he wasn't even there. He just gave me the address, told me to go over there. So I knock on the door, and Chase comes to the door. He's like, what's up, man? I was like, well, Oscar told me to come over. He's like, well, hell, come on in, you know. Had some drinks. By the end of the night, I'm listening to these songs, and I'm just like, bro, what? This is sick.
Yeah.
So that record that he did with Oscar, it's got a picture of his dad on the front of the record. There's songs on there that are so amazing. Bench Seat, Chase wrote by himself. It's about a friend or somebody he knew of that went out one night, a veteran that went out to commit suicide one night in his truck and had a dog in the truck with him. And, well, there's a twist to the story. Mm-hmm. And it's just a really amazing story. And then Love Don't Walk That Easy, Way Down Yonder. I ended up singing on like 3 songs while I was there that night. Just singing harmonies and stuff because I was having so much fun. So I really love what Chase is doing now. He understands that it's way different than what he was doing.
Sure.
It's a paradigm shift, but he's putting into work and he's sticking to his guns and doing what he believes in. So I can respect that.
I was about to say I respect the shit out of that. That's badass. Well, brother,
but yeah, I think if you can get any of those guys, that'd be great. You know, I was trying to think if there's some badass girls that you.
We got some coming up. I think we got 4 or 5 on the podcast, more blue collar driven, but we've had a couple on. We had Lexi the electrician on. We've had a few, and they those ladies in music and trades they're awesome. They're great to have on, and it's also awesome to hear their story too because you know all the work that goes into it. Yeah,
I mean it's definitely not an easier route for a woman, where some jobs can be, I guess, but yeah, through Troco and everything, I've met some of those trades girls at shows that have came out and stuff, and it's like, damn, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like you're a Boilermaker? Yeah. Like I've never met a female Boilermaker before. That's wild, you know?
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and you got to admire the hell out of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, brother. I wouldn't want to date a girl like that though. I'd already get my ass kicked by my girl.
Well, man. Elvie, I appreciate the heck out of the time, man. It is always fun to catch up, and stoked about the new music. You know, appreciate you sharing your story. Everybody go check out elvieshane.com, check out the tour schedule, all of that. And brother, thank you so much.
Hey, brother, we love you, man. God bless.
Hey, love y'all too. And hey, guys, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Till the next time, take care. Thank y'all. Thank you so much for listening to the Old Boy Podcast. Please subscribe, like, set your notifications, whatever you got to do to make sure you're getting the latest episodes. Also, feel free to go back, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple, get some of the past episodes, check those out, and always feel free to check out our socials, Old Boy Podcast. Thank you so much.